In the world of tech, there's this global race, right? Everyone's trying to build the next billion-dollar company, the next unicorn. But what if a government decided to get in on the action? Well, that's exactly what's happening in South Korea. They're on an intense, nationwide hunt for their next global champion. So, how do you even begin to manufacture a unicorn? Let's dive in.
Okay, just remember this one number, 7 to 1. That's the competition. For every 7 companies that applied to get into South Korea's super elite preliminary unicorn program this year, only 1 made it through. We are talking about an incredibly exclusive club. Getting in means you've officially been stamped as one of the nation's brightest hopes.
So what is this hunt, exactly? Well, this isn't some casual search. This is a full-blown government mission, and it's called the Global Unicorn Project. The goal? It's pretty simple, really. Find the country's most promising startups, and then, well, basically strap a rocket to their backs. Give them all the fuel they need to hit that billion-dollar valuation and compete on the world stage.
Okay, so you hear this term, preliminary unicorn, and you might just think it's another startup buzzword. But it's way more than that. This is a title. It's a stamp of approval for a private company that's been handpicked by the government because it's already passed some seriously tough tests on market validation, on innovation, and most importantly, because it has a clear path to becoming a real unicorn.
And let me tell you, the bar for entry is incredibly high. To even be considered, a company has to have either pulled in at least 5 billion won, that's roughly 3.6 million US dollars, in venture investments, or it has to already have a private valuation of over 100 billion won, which is about $72 million. So the crucial point here is, we're not talking about startups in a garage. These are already serious players. And the reward for making it into this exclusive club? It's a massive launchpad. These companies get access to up to 20 billion won, that's nearly $15 million, in special government guarantees. But honestly, the cash isn't even the best part. The real prize is like getting the keys to the kingdom. We're talking critical support for mergers, access to elite global consulting, and a fast track for breaking into markets overseas.
Now, this is where it gets really fascinating. How are these companies actually trying to win? So let's meet 3 of this year's winners. We're not just going to look at who they are. We're going to unpack their playbooks for taking over the world.
All right, let's meet the players. In one corner, you've got Nature Mobility, playing the long game as the efficiency expert. In another, there's Rapolabs, the aggressive market dominator. And finally, we have Ignis, the savvy, profitable diversifier. See? 3 companies, 3 completely different ways to win.
First up is our efficiency expert, Nature Mobility. They run a global mobility platform called Gymcar, and their entire strategy is built on one thing: smart, lean growth. Instead of just hiring massive teams, they've poured all their resources into automation and making their operations incredibly efficient. That's how they plan to scale.
And this chart just says it all, doesn't it? Take a look. You can see their monthly user numbers and their transaction volume. Both are seeing nice, steady growth. But then look at their employee count. It's barely moved. It grew at an average of just 0.2% a month. This is a company that has absolutely mastered the art of doing more with less.
Okay, now for a completely different philosophy, let's talk about Rapolabs. They're the company behind Queen It, which is a wildly popular fashion platform for women in their 40s and 50s. And their story really brings up that classic startup dilemma. Do you spend big now to completely own the market tomorrow?
And you really can't argue with the results, at least when you look at the top line. Their revenue just skyrocketed. It jumped by 38% last year, hitting 57 billion won. They've obviously found a huge underserved market, and they are capturing it with incredible speed. But, and it's a big but, here's the catch. To get that explosive growth, they posted an operating loss of over 7.4 billion won. And that one number really represents the central tension for so many of these companies. Do you prioritize dominating the market, or do you prioritize making a profit? Rapolabs has clearly made its choice.
So, is there another way? Our third company, Ignis, proves there is. They're a consumer brands company. Think food and beauty. And they represent a more mature model. They're the ones who have already cracked the profitability puzzle. So how'd they do it? What was their secret? Well, it wasn't one magic bullet. It was a really disciplined 3-step process. First, they established their core brands as reliable cash cows. Then they started to diversify, launching new brands in totally different sectors like beauty and expanding overseas. And crucially, they also invested in their own efficiency by putting in a big new management system, which was the key to them finally turning a profit this year. It's just a masterclass in building a sustainable business. You know, these three stories perfectly set up the universal challenge that every high-growth company faces. It's this double-edged sword of the unicorn journey. You've got to balance that relentless push for growth against the absolute necessity of building a sustainable, profitable company.
And who better to explain it than Aileen Lee, the person who literally invented the word unicorn in the first place? She says it best: reaching a billion-dollar valuation isn't the finish line. It's just a milestone in a much, much longer race.
So what separates the companies that win the marathon from the ones that flame out? It almost always comes down to one thing, and it's highlighted right here. Are you obsessed with market demand, or are you just obsessed with your cool new tech? Too many startups fail because they build something absolutely brilliant that nobody actually wants to buy. But, of course, this whole hunt for unicorns isn't happening in a vacuum. We need to zoom out a bit, because this is a fierce global race, and every country is placing a different kind of bet on how to win. Just take the US, the undisputed leader. You know what its secret weapon is? It's people. Specifically, its power to attract global talent. Get this, a staggering 44% of American unicorns were founded by immigrants. It's this powerful pull model that brings the world's best ideas right to Silicon Valley.
And this just reveals how different all the global playbooks really are. The US is very market-driven. China leans heavily on government support in its huge domestic market. Japan tends to be more conservative. And Singapore has carved out a niche as this amazing strategic gateway. The key takeaway here is that there's no single path to victory. The US model thrives on freedom for capital and talent. China's model is all about scale and state-backed ambition. Japan is focused on careful transformation, and Singapore's success lies in being a strategic, super business-friendly hub. Each strategy has its own strengths and weaknesses. So let's bring all this back home. What does it all mean? After looking at these different playbooks, both in Korea and around the world, if you were building the next big thing, what's the actual winning formula? You know, it seems to boil down to two fundamental paths, and our case studies really embody them perfectly. You've got the Rapple Labs path, go for aggressive growth to capture the market, and you figure out the profits later. And then you had the Ignis path, build a diversified, efficient, and profitable machine right from the ground up. So I'll leave you with this final question. In that long, grueling marathon of building a billion-dollar company, if you were forced to prioritize just one, explosive growth or sustainable profit, which one do you think gives you the best chance of actually crossing that finish line?